Okay, I know we're outside. I kind of want to change it up because it's actually really pretty out. And if you follow my TikToks, I encouraged everyone to look outside, see how the weather is, and take advantage of it. So I gotta follow what I said, right? Okay, so today's video I wanted to talk about PTSD. And it hits very close to home, which might be easier for me to talk about. So I'll kind of explain what happened to me, and then I'll kind of explain how you can move past it, okay? So about a year and a half ago, I was on my way to work, and I was going about 75 on the highway, and the car in front of me literally wasn't paying attention, slammed on his brakes to a complete stop, and I didn't have time to brake, so I crashed really hard in the back of them. My whole car crumbled. It was one of those things where you can't think fast enough. Like, I was plenty far back, but it happened so fast that it went. I had my seatbelt on a weird way, so I went up and over the steering wheel, which actually it didn't turn out as bad as it could have gotten hurt. I was pretty banged up and bruised. But at the time, I remember it was fight or flight, and I was able to get myself out of the car after a minute of calming down because I was bent weird. I got out of the car, and the other guy was perfectly fine, of course, not even hurt. He had a bigger car. It was his fault, but you know, usually the people who cause the accidents are the ones that get hurt. So it was really a weird moment where it felt like time froze, and it was worse because we were in the middle of an intersection. So here's the interstate. So here's the interstate, and we're in the middle of it, and there's still cars on both sides going everywhere. So we were really lucky something worse didn't happen. After that, I called the cops, called my friends, I called Grace. You know, I'm really banged up. They make me go to the hospital and get checked out because I'm already bruised and swollen all over my body. And I hit my head, so they were worried about concussion even though I didn't think I had one. So let's fast forward to that night. I was a hot mess. I was constantly crying and shaky, which I think is probably normal for any traumatic experience. And then let's fast forward a week. I still couldn't drive. Every time I got in a car, I couldn't breathe. And I think that's normal when you have such a traumatic event that you have to take control of your surroundings. Fast forward, let's go 6 months. I got a new car, obviously. I did still have to work. My current employer at the time was an asshole about the wreck and basically wanted me to come in that night, and I was like, that's not happening. Fast forward a couple weeks, and we'll go, sorry, there's a car coming and they're stopping and staring at me. So we're at 6 months. At 6 months, every time I got in a car I was still having really, really bad anxiety. I was driving super slow. I was shaky at the wheel. I mean, I would go to stoplights and just bawl. And I couldn't really tell what was going on because, yeah, I had always had anxiety, but never to this degree. So I would pull up the stoplights and be bawling. I would go, through the highway, and for the longest time, I still had to take that highway where I had the wreck to get to work. And to me, that was the hardest part because I would just know, and every time I drive by, I would flinch just because that's where the big wreck happened. So then let's go about 8 months out. We're at work, we're driving more. I'm trying to really hide it at this point. At this point, everyone's like, shouldn't you be past it? It's been 8 months, you're fine. And that's when I think I really was like, okay, this is I need help because this is not fun. We hit the year mark, and finally I got rid of my ego. I called the doctor, and I was just like, this is what's happening. I don't feel right. I'm constantly having anxiety attacks. And then I kept telling her what was happening. And so I had never, working at a psych hospital, we heard of flashbacks, but sometimes you kind of you're like, is it a real thing? Is it not? And she described what I was having as flashbacks, which was kind of weird to me because I never thought of it as that. But what was happening was, as I was driving and seeing red lights, for a split second I would flinch like this, and I didn't know what was happening on. I thought I was just getting the chills or something, and no, in my head, what I described to her was all I see is the lights for a split second, and she's like, that's a flashback. So that was happening a lot. Every time someone was hitting a light, I was having a flashback. Every time I would pull up and something would run in front of me, or Grace would slam on her brakes real quick, just because something ran in front of her, I would just start bawling, and I would just go like this because every 5 seconds it was coming back. And I've noticed, once they put me on medicine to calm the anxiety, I was okay. I mean, it didn't cure it, but it minimized it, you know. I was able to breathe more, able to focus on driving more. And it's weird because, like, right now I'm fine. We're 2 years after the wreck, almost 2 years. It'll be 2 years in June. And when I see red lights, I'm okay. I mean, I'll flinch a little bit, but not as bad as I was. The only time it gets really bad is if I'm truly stressed out. If I am stressed to the max, that's how you know something's going on, because I will just, that's my first sign. I'll start flinching a lot when I'm driving. I'll start like, it's hard to even think about it. When I'm stressed, it gets bad. But I've learned as an adult, and you should learn too, that you have to cope with it, because not always can we control our surroundings. So, you know, it's getting better. Do I think it'll always be there? No. I think 4 years from now, it'll be gone. It'll be a memory. I think it was just so impactful in my life and traumatic that, you know, right now we're like, here's the full stage. Here's where we began. And, you know, this is 4 years from now, and we're probably like right here, you know. But everyone heals on their own time. And so, you know, obviously I see a therapist, and I have since college, and so she was able to help me, you know, process it, get it through, understand kind of like what was going on. When it comes to you guys though, for trauma, it's harder because your brains aren't fully developed. You can't quite understand why things happen or why they're happening. And I'm more thankful this happened when I was 23 versus 17-year-old driving, because I think it would have been more impactful as a teenager. Since I was so young and new to driving, it would have been really, really hard to understand and just kind of go through the healing process. And as an adult, I can process it more and just be like, look, next time, you know, actually there was nothing I could do to prevent it, but next time, you know, just, I don't know. But anyway, you get what I'm saying, is that as an adult, with our brains fully developed, with us having more life experience, we're able to just push it aside and be like, okay, now we need to focus on everything else. Friend-wise, it was hit or miss with friends. I felt like a couple of my best friends completely understood what I was going through, and they didn't want me working. Grace didn't want me working. Grace would come sit at my work, and she called my therapist twice and was like, look, what do we need to do? We need to get Maddie okay, because she's at work and she can't breathe and she's hyperventilating. She's having panic attacks, you know. But then, like, some of my friends were like, it's been like 8 months. Like, what are you doing, you know? And that's when I think you just need to sit down and you tell your friends, like, look, we all heal differently, you know. My trauma is not comparable to your trauma. They're both traumas. It's not a contest, you know. I'll heal at my rate and you heal at your rate. And that's honestly the best way to get through that, is just talking to them and having a conversation like, look, I need your support and love, not you taking it down on me, not you saying I should be over it by now. It's honestly just reaching out and just being there. The other thing is, don't be afraid to ask for help. I am the queen of not wanting to ask for help. I hate asking for help. I don't want help. I want to do everything on my own. I want to be Superwoman. I want to save the world, and I don't want anyone to think that I'm not strong. Let me tell you, I crumbled when that wreck happened, and it took 8 or 9 months for me to realize I needed help. And that's because I have a really hard head and I didn't want to listen to people. So if you're going through a traumatic experience, here's what I recommend for you. You make a journal and you write down your feelings, because sometimes we can't express how we feel verbally, but when we're writing, it just comes more naturally and fluid. So get a journal and write down what happened and give it to an adult you trust, because in the end, if you're a kid, you're gonna have a hard time processing the trauma that you've been through, you know. And if it's a trauma that happened at home, maybe reach out to a school counselor and be like, look, I wrote this, I need help, can you keep it between us, I want to get better. You have to have a positive attitude, you know. You have to want to get through it. And that's the biggest thing I tell kids, is you can't start getting better until you start wanting to get better up here. So, and for medicine, I know a lot of people ask if there's PTSD medicine. Not that I'm aware of. They just put me on a mild dose of anti-anxiety medicine to get me through the little stage of getting better. I don't always like to turn to medicine for everything. And I think to me, that's why I got nervous in going, because I didn't want to be put on medicine. They'll recommend other things first. I do get really bad nightmares when I get stressed out, and during that time period I was having really bad nightmares, so I think that's also why they put me on it, because I was not sleeping. I was so upset about everything. But yeah, So that's a little glimpse into PTSD. If you have a PTSD story and you want to explain it or talk about it, leave it in the comments. I'm happy to like chat back and forth with you guys. But yeah, it gets better, I promised. I'm 2 years out of this and every day is a little better, a little brighter. When I drive, I get a little more confident. So just hang in there.